What if I told you that everything you've been taught about learning English is actually keeping you trapped? What if those vocabulary lists, grammar drills, and translation exercises are building walls instead of bridges in your mind? Meet Sarah, a young woman who spent years collecting English words like butterflies in a jar, yet froze completely when a tourist asked her for directions. She had notebooks filled with perfect translations, could recite grammar rules like poetry, but her brain was stuck in what I call translation prison. The breakthrough came when she discovered something revolutionary. Fluency isn't about knowing more words. It's about rewiring your brain to think differently. Sarah's transformation from a hesitant translator to a confident English thinker didn't happen through expensive courses or advanced textbooks. It happened through a simple but powerful realization that changed everything. Her journey reveals 3 game-changing secrets that most English learners never discover. These aren't quick fixes or magic tricks. They're the fundamental shifts that separate those who struggle for years from those who break through to genuine fluency. Are you ready to escape your own translation prison and discover what real English fluency feels like? Drop a comment below with your biggest English learning challenge right now. Sarah stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror, whispering the same phrase she'd practiced hundreds of times. Nice to meet you. How are you today? The words felt mechanical, rehearsed, like lines from a play she'd never truly understood. For 3 years, she followed every piece of traditional advice. Her Instagram feed overflowed with English motivational quotes. Her bookshelf groaned under the weight of grammar books and vocabulary guides. She'd filled 17 notebooks with careful translations, matching English words to their native equivalents like puzzle pieces. Every morning brought the same ritual. Review 50 new words, practice common conversations, repeat grammar patterns until they echoed in her dreams. She felt productive, disciplined, proud of her dedication. Her friends praised her commitment. Her teachers commended her effort. But something was terribly wrong. The moment real English entered her world, everything crumbled. When that German tourist approached her outside the museum, asking about directions to the city center, Sarah's mind became a battlefield. She heard his words clearly. "Excuse me, how can I get to the main square?" But her brain launched into its familiar dance of confusion. First, it captured the English sounds. Then, like a frantic translator working against a deadline, it converted each word into her native language. Her internal voice shouted, "He wants directions. Think. How do you say go straight in English? What about turn left? Wait, is it in or at the corner?" By the time her mental translator finished this exhausting process, the tourist had given up and walked away. Sarah stood frozen, watching him disappear into the crowd, her cheeks burning with embarrassment. That night, she sat on her bedroom floor surrounded by her English materials, the evidence of her hard work and her crushing failure. She'd memorized thousands of words, yet couldn't have a simple conversation. She knew every grammar rule, yet couldn't speak naturally. She'd studied English for years, yet English still felt like a foreign country she could only visit with a translator. The cruel irony hit her. She wasn't learning English. She was learning about English. She was building an elaborate translation machine in her head instead of developing genuine language ability. Every word she learned came attached to its native equivalent. Every sentence she formed required mental conversion. Every conversation became an exhausting translation exercise. This realization devastated her, but it also sparked something powerful. Sarah understood that her approach wasn't just ineffective, it was counterproductive. She was training her brain to depend on translation, creating mental pathways that made real fluency impossible. The traditional method had trapped her in what she now recognized as translation prison, a mental space where English could only exist as a reflection of her native language, never as a living, breathing part of her thoughts. That night marked the end of Sarah's old learning journey and the beginning of something revolutionary. She made a decision that would change everything. She would stop learning English and start living in it. The next morning brought Sarah's first breakthrough, and it happened in complete silence. She woke up, stretched, and noticed something she'd never paid attention to before: the voice in her head. Not the voice she used for speaking, but that constant internal narrator that comments on everything. The voice that says, "I'm thirsty," when you need water, or "That's beautiful," when you see a sunset. Sarah realized with stunning clarity that this inner voice, her truest, most natural self, spoke exclusively in her native language. Even after years of English study, her internal world remained completely monolingual. When she felt hungry, her brain said, "I need food," in her native tongue. When she saw a cute dog, her thoughts formed in familiar words from childhood. This discovery shook her. How could she expect to speak English naturally when her inner world never touched the language? It was like trying to sing a song she'd never heard, dance to music that existed only in theory. She began observing herself with scientific curiosity. Throughout the day, she caught her internal narrator at work, commenting on the weather, making shopping lists, rehearsing conversations, expressing feelings. Every single thought emerged in her first language. English existed only in artificial moments, during study time, when writing exercises, when forcing herself to practice. The problem became crystal clear. She created two separate worlds in her mind. World one contained her real thoughts, emotions, dreams, and daily experiences, all in her native language. World 2 held her English knowledge, vocabulary lists, grammar rules, memorized phrases, isolated from her actual life. These worlds never met. When she needed to speak English, her brain had to build a bridge between them, translating thoughts from World 1 into the borrowed words of World 2. This translation process created delays, mistakes, and that unnatural feeling that plagued her conversations. Sarah understood why English felt so foreign, because it was foreign to her inner life. She'd spent years decorating the outside of her house while leaving the inside unchanged. Her thoughts, dreams, and authentic self remained untouched by English. But this revelation also illuminated the path forward. If her inner voice was the source of natural speech, then transforming that voice was the key to genuine fluency. Instead of adding more vocabulary to World 2, she needed to merge both worlds into one unified experience. The solution seemed simultaneously simple and impossible. She had to change the language of her thoughts. That evening, Sarah stood before her mirror and spoke to her reflection. Tomorrow, we start thinking differently. Tomorrow, we invite English into our real world. She felt scared and excited. Changing the language of her thoughts meant changing something fundamental about her identity. But she also felt hopeful. For the first time, she understood why her traditional approach had failed and could see a clear path to real fluency. The journey would require courage, patience, and a willingness to feel awkward. She would have to rebuild her relationship with language from the ground up. But Sarah was ready. She'd spent 3 years learning to translate. Now it was time to learn to think. Sarah's first attempt to think in English felt like trying to write with her non-dominant hand, clumsy, slow, and surprisingly exhausting. She began the next morning with the simplest possible task, describing her immediate surroundings. Opening her eyes, she forced her inner voice to say, "This is my bed," instead of automatically thinking in her native language. The words felt artificial, like wearing clothes that didn't quite fit. "The ceiling is white," she thought deliberately. "The window shows trees outside." Each English thought required conscious effort, like pushing a heavy stone uphill. Her brain kept wanting to revert to its comfortable patterns, but Sarah gently redirected it back to English. Walking to the bathroom, she continued the experiment. "I need to brush my teeth. The toothpaste is mint flavor. The water feels cold." The sentences were simple, childlike even, but something magical was happening. For the first time in years, English wasn't trapped in study time. It was entering her real, moment-by-moment experience. The resistance was immediate and strong. Her mind felt tired after just 10 minutes of forced English thinking. It was like exercising muscles she'd never used before. But Sarah recognized this fatigue as evidence of real change happening in her brain. During breakfast, she pushed further. "I am hungry. This apple is sweet. I want coffee now." The thoughts came slowly, but they came. More importantly, they bypassed the translation process entirely. Instead of thinking in her native language and then converting to English, she was generating thoughts directly in English. The breakthrough moment came while washing dishes. As she scrubbed a plate, her mind naturally formed the thought, "This plate is clean now." She almost dropped it in excitement. The thought had emerged spontaneously in English, without forcing or translating. It lasted only a second, but it proved something crucial. Her brain could create English thoughts naturally. That success energized her for the rest of the day. Walking outside, she described everything she saw. "The sky looks gray today. That woman wears a red coat. The traffic is heavy." Some thoughts still required effort, but others began flowing more naturally. The biggest challenge came with emotions and abstract thoughts. Describing physical objects was manageable, but when she felt frustrated with a difficult task, her brain immediately reverted to native language curse words and complaints. Emotional thinking, she realized, was deeply rooted in her first language. So she started with simple emotions. "I feel good today. I'm a little tired. This makes me happy." It felt strange to name her feelings in English, like viewing her emotional life through a new lens. But gradually, these basic emotional expressions began feeling less foreign. By evening, Sarah noticed something remarkable. Periods of natural English thinking were becoming longer. While cooking dinner, she maintained an English internal dialogue for several minutes without conscious effort. "The onions smell strong. I should add more salt. This recipe is new for me." That night, she reflected on the day's experiment. Her brain felt different, not just tired, but expanded, like a room with newly opened windows. She'd taken the first real steps toward merging her two mental worlds. The process was slow and sometimes frustrating, but Sarah felt genuine excitement. She wasn't just learning English anymore. She was becoming someone who could think in English. The difference was profound and liberating. As she drifted off to sleep, her last conscious thought came naturally in English. "Tomorrow will be better." 3 weeks into her thinking experiment, Sarah discovered that silent English thoughts weren't enough. Her mouth and voice needed training too. The revelation came while brushing her hair. She'd been thinking in English. "My hair looks messy today. I should use conditioner more often." Then, almost by accident, she whispered these thoughts aloud. Hearing her own voice speaking these natural, unscripted English words sent electricity through her entire body. It wasn't the mechanical repetition of textbook phrases she'd practiced for years. This was her authentic voice expressing her real thoughts in English. The difference was extraordinary. That day, Sarah made a bold decision. She would start talking to herself in English throughout her daily activities. It felt strange at first. Talking to yourself is already considered odd, and doing it in a second language felt doubly weird. But Sarah was beyond caring about appearances. She was pursuing something more important than social comfort: genuine fluency. She started small, narrating simple actions while alone. "Now I'm making tea. The water is boiling. I need to find my favorite cup." Her voice was quiet, almost secretive, as if she was sharing secrets with herself in a new language. The magic began immediately. Unlike her previous practice sessions with textbook dialogues, this felt completely natural. She wasn't trying to remember correct answers or impress anyone. She was simply living her life out loud in English. Cleaning her room became an English adventure. "These clothes need to go in the washing machine. That book should return to the shelf. Oh, I found my missing earring." Each sentence built her confidence. She was proving to herself that she could express real thoughts, real emotions, real experiences in English. The transformation accelerated when Sarah started creating stories from mundane activities. While cooking pasta, she became a cooking show host. "Today we're making simple pasta with tomato sauce. First, we boil the water. Look how the pasta changes color when it cooks. The smell is wonderful." She laughed at herself, but the laughter came from joy, not embarrassment. She was playing, experimenting, having fun with English in a way she'd never experienced in traditional study sessions. Her confidence grew with each passing day. When she made mistakes, and she made many, she simply continued talking. What I want to say is, became her favorite phrases for self-correction. She learned that fluency wasn't about perfection. It was about continuing to communicate despite imperfections. The real breakthrough came when Sarah started having actual conversations with herself. She'd ask questions and answer them, playing both roles. How was your day, Sarah? It was good, thank you. I learned some new words. How about you? This wasn't mental illness. It was brilliant language training. These self-conversations prepared her for real interactions in ways that textbook dialogues never could. She was practicing natural rhythm, realistic responses, authentic emotions. When a tourist later asked her for directions, Sarah's response flowed naturally because she'd rehearsed thousands of authentic conversations with herself. But perhaps most importantly, talking to herself in English eliminated the performance anxiety that had previously paralyzed her. When every conversation felt like a test, speaking became terrifying. But when she regularly heard her own voice expressing thoughts in English, it started feeling normal, comfortable, like coming home. Sarah discovered that self-talk wasn't just practice, it was transformation. Every English sentence she spoke to herself rewrote her relationship with the language. She was no longer someone who studied English. She was someone who lived in English. Her voice became her greatest teacher, her most patient conversation partner, and her strongest source of confidence. 2 months into her journey, Sarah hit a frustrating wall. Despite thinking in English and talking to herself daily, she still caught her brain doing something that slowed everything down, translating. She'd think of something in her native language first, then search for the English equivalent. Or she'd hear an English word and automatically convert it to her native language before understanding it. This translation habit was like a heavy chain dragging behind her, preventing natural fluency. The problem revealed itself clearly during a phone conversation with a friend. Sarah wanted to describe her new plant, but she couldn't remember the English word for fertilizer. Instead of continuing the conversation, she froze, desperately searching her mental dictionary for the exact translation. That evening, Sarah confronted this limitation head-on. She realized that seeking perfect word-for-word translations was keeping her trapped in her old patterns. Native speakers don't always use precise, fancy vocabulary. They communicate effectively with the words they have. She made a revolutionary decision. She would embrace simple English and trust it completely. The next day, instead of searching for complex vocabulary, Sarah deliberately used basic words she knew well. When she couldn't remember fertilizer, she said plant food instead. When exhausted wouldn't come to mind, she used very tired. When she forgot magnificent, she chose really beautiful. This shift changed everything. By trusting simple English, Sarah eliminated the translation delays that had plagued her for years. Her thoughts flowed directly into speech without the exhausting detour through her native language. She created a personal motto: simple words, strong communication. This became her guiding principle. She would rather express herself clearly with basic vocabulary than remain silent while searching for sophisticated terms. Sarah started playing creative games with limitation. She'd pick a complex concept and explain it using only the 1,000 most common English words. Describing her university studies, she said, "I go to school to learn about people and how they think and act together in groups." It wasn't academic language, but it communicated perfectly. This approach freed her from the perfectionism that had paralyzed her progress. She stopped apologizing for simple vocabulary and started celebrating clear communication. When tourists asked for directions, she gave them using basic words: go straight, then turn right at the big building. You will see it. They understood perfectly and thanked her warmly. The transformation was psychological as much as linguistic. For years, Sarah had believed that fluency required knowing thousands of advanced words. She'd collected vocabulary like trophies, thinking quantity would eventually transform into quality. But she discovered that fluency was about flow, not vocabulary size. Native speakers, she realized, don't use their entire vocabulary in daily conversation. They communicate naturally using a core set of words they know intimately. Sarah began building her own intimate relationship with simple English words, using them flexibly and confidently. She practiced describing complex emotions with basic vocabulary. Instead of searching for devastated, she said very, very sad. Instead of frustrated, she used angry and tired. These simple expressions carried authentic emotion and connected with listeners more effectively than borrowed, sophisticated words. Most liberating of all, Sarah discovered that embracing simple English actually accelerated her vocabulary growth. When she stopped pressuring herself to use advanced words, she naturally absorbed new vocabulary from context. Words she encountered in conversations, movies, and books began sticking because she was relaxed and receptive rather than stressed and searching. The chain of translation had finally broken. Sarah's English thoughts no longer needed to travel through her native language before emerging as speech. They flowed directly from mind to mouth, creating the natural fluency she'd dreamed of for years. Simple English had set her free. By month 4, Sarah had discovered something profound. She didn't need special time or perfect conditions to practice English. Her entire life could become an English immersion experience. The breakthrough came during a mundane Saturday morning. While sorting laundry, Sarah found herself naturally narrating the process. These socks don't match. This shirt needs ironing. I should wash the dark clothes separately. She realized that every ordinary activity was an opportunity to strengthen her English thinking. This revelation transformed her approach completely. Instead of dedicating specific English practice time, she began weaving English into every aspect of her daily routine. Waking up became English time. Good morning, Sarah. What's the plan for today? Making breakfast became English time. I want eggs and toast. The coffee smells wonderful. Even mundane chores became engaging when filtered through English. Cleaning her room, she'd comment, "This drawer is messy. Where should I put these papers? Oh, I found my old photos." What had once been boring tasks became opportunities for natural language practice. Sarah discovered that household activities were perfect for language learning because they involved concrete, visual actions. She could see what she was describing, touch what she was naming, experience what she was expressing. This created strong neural connections between English words and real-world experiences. Cooking became her favorite English practice. She'd play chef and narrator simultaneously. Now I'm chopping onions. Ouch, they make my eyes water. The oil is getting hot. Time to add the vegetables. This wasn't just vocabulary practice. It was building the ability to think and speak simultaneously in English. Shopping trips transformed into treasure hunts for English practice. She'd read product labels aloud, compare prices in English, and even make mental grocery lists in English. I need bananas, bread, and some cheese. That apple juice is expensive. Oh, they have my favorite cookies. Walking became meditation in motion. Sarah would describe everything she observed. The weather is cloudy today. That dog is so fluffy. The children are playing in the park. These simple observations kept her brain active in English while making ordinary walks more engaging and mindful. Even waiting time became productive. Standing in line, riding the bus, or sitting in waiting rooms, Sarah would quietly practice English in her mind. She'd describe other people kindly, plan her day, or review conversations she'd had. Dead time became alive with language learning. The most powerful discovery was turning her apartment into an English environment. She labeled objects with English names, set her phone and computer to English, and began thinking of her space using English words. Her bedroom became the place where I sleep and read. Her kitchen became where I cook and eat. Sarah also started reading English aloud to herself. Not difficult literature, but simple articles, funny stories, even Instagram captions. She'd read slowly, tasting each word, enjoying the rhythm of English sounds. Sometimes she'd pretend to be a news anchor or YouTube creator, making the practice playful and engaging. The integration became so complete that distinguishing between life and English practice became impossible. They were the same thing. Sarah wasn't squeezing English into her life. English was becoming her life. This approach eliminated the artificial separation between study time and real time that had limited her progress for years. Instead of practicing English for 1 hour and living in her native language for 23 hours, she was living in English all day long. The results were remarkable. Her English thinking became faster, more natural, more connected to her actual experiences. She stopped needing to switch into English mode because she was already there. Sarah had discovered that fluency doesn't require perfect conditions. It requires consistent integration of language into the messy, beautiful reality of daily life. 6 months into her transformation, Sarah faced a crucial challenge: how to maintain her English thinking habits when motivation wavered, energy dropped, or life became overwhelming. She'd learned that dramatic changes often led to dramatic failures. The key to lasting transformation was building small, sustainable habits that could survive difficult days. Sarah needed to create an English mindset that would persist whether she felt energetic or exhausted, motivated or discouraged. Her first strategy was designing minimum viable habits, the smallest possible English practices that she could maintain even on her worst days. On days when speaking to herself felt overwhelming, she committed to just one English sentence when waking up: "Today will be good." On days when narrating activities seemed impossible, she'd simply name 5 objects in English: bed, window, cup, book, phone. These tiny habits acted like anchors, keeping her connected to English even when everything else felt chaotic. Sarah discovered that maintaining the connection mattered more than the intensity of practice. 1 sentence was infinitely better than 0 sentences. She also learned to work with her natural energy rhythms rather than against them. Morning Sarah was alert and motivated, perfect for challenging English conversations with herself. Evening Sarah was tired but reflective, ideal for simple English journaling. Weekend Sarah was playful and had more time, great for English movies and games. Instead of forcing the same practice at all times, Sarah created a flexible system that honored her changing energy levels while maintaining consistent English exposure. The most powerful habit she developed was English micro-moments, tiny pockets of English thinking throughout the day. Waiting for coffee to brew. 3 English thoughts. Walking upstairs. Describe the action in English. Checking the weather. React in English. These micro-moments accumulated into hours of natural practice without feeling burdensome. Sarah also built resilience into her system by preparing for setbacks. She knew there would be days when she forgot to think in English, weeks when life crises demanded all her attention in her native language. Instead of viewing these as failures, she treated them as normal parts of the journey. She created a comeback ritual for these moments. No self-criticism, no guilt, just a simple return to English with 1 friendly sentence. "Hello again, English. I missed you." This ritual eliminated the shame that often prevents people from restarting good habits after interruptions. Environmental design became crucial for habit maintenance. Sarah surrounded herself with gentle English reminders. Phone notifications saying, "Think in English," sticky notes with encouraging English phrases, and English podcasts playing softly in the background during household tasks. But the most important element was self-compassion. Sarah learned to celebrate small victories rather than criticizing imperfections. When she caught herself thinking in English naturally, she'd silently say, "Good job." When she made mistakes, she'd respond with, "That's how we learn." This positive internal dialogue strengthened her English habits by making the practice emotionally rewarding rather than stressful. The brain, she discovered, gravitates toward activities that feel good and avoids those that feel punishing. Sarah also created accountability through gentle self-monitoring. Each evening, she'd briefly reflect. How much English thinking happened today? Not to judge herself, but to maintain awareness and adjust the next day's approach if needed. The habit that surprised her most was English gratitude practice. Each night, she'd identify 3 good things from her day and express appreciation in English. I'm grateful for the sunny weather, the delicious lunch, and the kind message from my friend. This practice ended each day with positive English emotions, reinforcing the habit loop. After 6 months of consistent practice, Sarah realized that her English habits had become automatic. She no longer had to remember to think in English. Her brain had rewired itself to make English the default mode. The transformation was complete. Sarah had successfully built a new mental architecture where English lived naturally and permanently. 1 year after beginning her journey, Sarah stood in the same museum where her English learning adventure had started. But this time, when a confused tourist approached asking for directions, everything was different. "Excuse me, could you help us find the contemporary art section?" the woman asked in English. Without hesitation, without translation, without the familiar panic, Sarah responded naturally. "Of course. You want to go up those stairs to the second floor, then turn left. You'll see the modern paintings right at the entrance. The Picasso exhibition is particularly beautiful today." The conversation flowed effortlessly. Sarah found herself chatting with the visitors about their travels, recommending local restaurants, even sharing her favorite pieces in the museum. When they thanked her and walked away, Sarah stood amazed at what had just happened. Her brain hadn't translated a single word. Every thought, every response, every emotion had emerged directly in English. She had become someone who genuinely thought in English, not someone who translated thoughts into English. The transformation extended far beyond conversations with strangers. Sarah's inner world had fundamentally changed. Her dreams regularly featured English dialogues. Her problem-solving happened in English. When she felt frustrated, excited, or contemplative, these emotions expressed themselves in English thoughts. Even her relationship with silence had evolved. The quiet moments in her day, walking alone, waiting in line, lying in bed before sleep, were filled with English observations, plans, and reflections. English had become the natural language of her consciousness. But perhaps most significantly, Sarah's entire personality felt more confident and expressive in English. Without the constant burden of translation, she could focus on what she wanted to communicate rather than how to say it. Conversations became opportunities for connection rather than linguistic tests. She discovered that she could be funny in English, sharing jokes and wordplay that emerged spontaneously. She could be philosophical, discussing complex ideas without getting lost in vocabulary searches. She could be emotional, expressing feelings with authenticity and nuance. Sarah's professional life transformed as well. Job interviews, previously sources of terror, became engaging conversations. She could think quickly, respond authentically, and showcase her personality rather than just her memorized phrases. Colleagues began seeking her input on projects, recognizing her as someone who could contribute meaningfully in English. The ripple effects surprised her. Learning to think in English had taught her about neuroplasticity, patience, and the power of small daily actions. She developed confidence not just in language, but in her ability to change fundamental aspects of herself through consistent practice. Sarah began mentoring other English learners, sharing her unconventional approach. She watched their faces light up when they understood that fluency wasn't about perfection or vocabulary size. It was about neural rewiring and mental habit formation. "Stop trying to learn English," she would tell them. "Start living in English. Make English thoughts part of your daily experience. Trust simple words. Practice with your real life, not textbooks." Looking back, Sarah could hardly believe her transformation. The woman who once froze at simple questions now conducted business meetings in English, watched English movies without subtitles, and even began writing personal thoughts in English journals. The most beautiful change was internal. English no longer felt foreign. It felt like home. It felt like a natural part of her identity, not a borrowed costume she occasionally wore. Sarah's story became proof that language learning isn't just about acquiring new skills. It's about expanding who you are. She hadn't just learned English. She had become bilingual in thought, bicultural in perspective, and infinitely more confident in expression. The shy woman who translated every thought had evolved into someone who thought, dreamed, and lived in two languages fluidly and naturally. Her transformation was complete, but her journey continued. Now, as someone who could truly think in English. Sarah's transformation reveals a fundamental truth about language learning that challenges everything we've been taught. Fluency isn't about accumulating knowledge. It's about rewiring your brain. The traditional approach treats language learning like filling a container. Add more vocabulary, memorize more grammar rules, practice more dialogues. But Sarah discovered that real fluency requires architectural change in your mind, not just additional content. Her journey teaches us that the path to genuine English fluency involves three revolutionary shifts. First, transform your inner voice. The voice in your head, your truest, most natural thoughts, must begin operating in English. This isn't about translation. It's about changing the default language of your consciousness. Second, embrace simple English completely. Fluency comes from using basic words smoothly and confidently, not from knowing advanced vocabulary you're afraid to use incorrectly. Communication trumps sophistication every time. Third, integrate practice into living. Instead of studying English during special practice time, make English thinking part of your daily experience. Your entire life becomes your classroom. Every moment becomes practice. But the deepest lesson transcends language learning. We have far more power to change ourselves than we realize. Sarah's story proves that with patience, consistency, and the right approach, we can literally rewire our brains and transform fundamental aspects of our identity. Her transformation from hesitant translator to confident English thinker wasn't magic. It was a result of small, daily choices that accumulated into profound change. This gives hope to anyone struggling with English. Your breakthrough isn't about finding the perfect method or having special talent. It's about making the decision to think differently and then practicing that decision every single day. Sarah's story shows us that English fluency isn't a distant dream. It's a daily choice. You don't need expensive courses, perfect grammar, or years of study. You need the courage to start thinking differently right now, today. Your transformation begins with one simple question. What would your life look like if you could think naturally in English? If Sarah's journey inspired you, hit that like button and let us know in the comments. What's your biggest English learning challenge right now? Are you ready to escape translation prison and start living in English? Subscribe to Epic English Stories for more transformational journeys that prove fluency is possible for everyone. Your English breakthrough story could be next. Remember, you're not just learning a language. You're becoming someone new. The journey starts now.